Last video, we tore down a VG from a 300ZX that unfortunately dropped a valve due to faulty injectors. Heated up the valve too much and it folded over. Bad atomization is my assumption, but doesn't matter. Engine's blown up. We've got a hole in the block. It's too natural to say hole in the block, but we've got a hole in the piston. So needless to say, that bottom end is no good. At least it needs rebuilt. We still got to further tear it down to make sure everything's good, but we have got us a donor VG right here. So this video, we're gonna be pretty much tearing this thing down. We're gonna be cleaning it up, resealing it, regasketing it, retiming it, and we've got a bunch of other parts over here that we've got to swap over onto it to keep kind of the theme going on and, you know, all of the original parts that are good in their due spots. We've actually got a customer car pulling in anytime now coming from Illinois, if I remember correctly. And we're doing an NATT swap on that, so stay tuned for that. But now, let's begin our tear down. I think first thing, we're gonna grab some of our drain pans, we're gonna prop them up and not make a mess, because you can see it's still all hooked up. I forgot to mention the goal of this video is pretty much to get the motor ready to drop in, so if we can get that done, next video we get to put it in and hopefully be done with it. That would be ideal at least. So actually just throw a couple of these in before we get started. I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty dirty motor. First and foremost, let's just start tearing the top end down so we can actually open up our valve covers, see kind of the rough condition of this motor, you know, before we really pull forward. Basically, I don't want it to be super like built up and, you know, just maybe obvious signs of damage, really bad cam loads. You just never know. It's looking like we don't have good injectors here. Looks like some eBay specials. So much for reusable parts or return on used parts, you know. Definitely got a valve cover leak. Got oil on our spark plug seals. Safe to say these gaskets are worn out. Things are not even tight anymore. You can tell someone did the lazy way and shaved the plenum for the injector adapter. That's unfortunate because that made an absolute mess of everything. The way I go about this, that I can clean everything without getting it in everything, is I flip the motor upside down. Do it that way. What are we working with? The annoying thing here with this stock setup is, you know, it's always a pain in the butt to get off, especially with this EGR in the way. I guess we're taking this one off first. That will probably help. I don't know why I didn't think of that already. Cam lobes look good. Definitely been used. I mean, there's zero buildup. So let's pull this off before I show you guys something really stinking cool. Hey, again, not bad. I guess we know what we're working with. Now, for the big reveal. So as I told you, we had another customer car coming in for an NATT swap, and let's just say I am absolutely obsessed with this thing. It is such a gorgeous Z. Silver 1990. Perfect example of what was in the commercial that got half of everyone hooked on these cars. Killer. So we're going to be tearing this thing down, giving it the full one over, pretty much what we're doing over here on this engine, and we're going to make it turbo. So hope you guys are excited for that, but we got to get Josh's car done first. Matt wants to do it all right, so we're going to take a little bit more time with this. Not that Josh isn't, but we're getting a lot of new parts for this, and it's going to be a more thrilling build versus using a lot of old crusty stuff like I do. Before we go yanking the EGR, let's pull our two heater core water pipes off. You have a little 12 mil holding up the pipe over there, and then your two tins. What? Okay, it's not stripped. Apparently there's Loctite. Ah, there we go. Really hope we didn't knock nothing in the head there. Oh, get out of there. Said it once and I'll say it a million times again. Put all your bolts back where they came from so you have a better idea of where they go. And remove old RTV. Now we can ditch that EGR. There's one and a two. That's pretty much guaranteed scrap. Nobody needs these things. All they do is regurgitate exhaust back in your intake and clog everything up. I guess while we're here, pull our VTCs. Don't drop your bolts like me. Pretty much since we're running out of stuff, we got the back already stripped down minus the knock sensor. Let's start pulling the exhaust manifold. And I always forget, gotta pull this pesky motor mount so we can pull the motor mount bracket to get room to actually get a wrench in here. I think the greasy finger fight is over. I think that's our last one. Yeah, sweet. Yikes, that's pretty rusty. Looks like we're gonna have to brush it up and do a little bit of a paint job. Oh, it's actually gonna come off. Nifty. Has some resistance. If you guys need one, hit me up. Not bad. Now for the pan. How'd I do that? I don't know, but it just magically appeared. Now this was leaking last I recall, so let's see if we still got any coolant. I really thought those were going to be too rusty. Not like that one. That mangled up about how I anticipated. Ooh, yucky. There we go. Now that's trash. One of my favorite things to do, chop a belt. Yeah, so empowering. Hey, but I just realized we got a new crank pulley for Josh right here, so that's nice. Before we go pulling anything timing related off the front, we're actually going to flip the motor over so we can try to get all the stuff out of the intake that fell in through either transport or just storage. There is like a leaf, piece of RTV, some like other little bits of stuff, and I really want to get that out so we don't have to worry about that falling into the cylinder, and definitely don't want to get anything stuck in between the valve and the head and just you know, make not a good seal there. So we did actually just pick up another drain pan, so that way we can have one for oil and not have to have the other pan that we can spill all the time. Part of me's thinking before we fully flip it over, maybe we should do something with the power steering here. Tensioner's disconnected. Power steering pump should come out. Okay, it does have power steering fluid, I guess. I knew I was gonna find out. Oh, nice, on my shoes. Oh, these nice new shoes are definitely ruined now. That's what I get for making them work shoes. Let's not make a mess. This is a little nerve-wracking. Let's just get it taken care of. And one heck of a mess later, we've kind of got it contained. I'm actually going to spin this over now while it's upside down so we can try to knock some of that out of our intake tracks. It's definitely not the easiest to turn, so I'd say we got compression. I think now before we do much else, we're probably just going to take the time to go ahead and clean everything up. Like these heads, wire brush everything down, kind of get it cleaned up. The pins, we're just trying to get his car back up on the road, and as you can see, everything back here is just completely filthy and grimy and dirty and oily. So let's give it a little one over. Let's freshen this thing up so we can move forward with pulling the oil pan and then redoing some gaskets. A couple cans of brake cleaner later and a whole lot of wire brushing, and I'd have to say that we cleaned these up pretty well. We even hit the block some, knocked all the excess off, got it vacuumed up, with the, you know, exception up here. That's pretty greasy. But that head, looking mighty crispy compared to what it was. We got our intake tracks all cleaned out from flipping it upside down. We put the shop vac up there, made sure we got everything. I think we're good to go. Now that means we get to start tearing down the front. I guess we can start pulling it apart. There we go. Let's just make it work instead of using the right stuff. Take the covers off and see what it's looking like underneath. If it's just leaking, if it's been changed, if it's been taken care of at all. Well, it doesn't look bad. Fairly clean. I mean, it's a little greasy, but timing cover is perfectly clean. I guess we can go ahead and pull our crank pulley. Even though we got to get the puller to actually get that off. Oh, okay, it's just Loctite or something. I really thought we had strip threads. I was like, no! We're leaving. Yeah, we'll get the puller on that. But before we do that, I guess I'll show you guys how to do that. Let's pull our cover. Timing cover is now off. We've got our steering wheel puller up here, which is this from Harbor Freight, and that's how you remove this. You have two 10 mil bolt, I don't know the threads, they might be like M6 by something, but you need longer bolts here. Then you thread your crank bolt out, you tighten this into it, and then you have these both snugged up with washers evenly, and as you crank this, it pulls the crank pulley off. I will say the kit does not come with the correct size bolts, so I literally just use bolts that I found on the Z's over the years. You can definitely find some like at the parts store or Lowe's or hardware stores like that. Oh, we're pulling it off, we're all good. Take your time with this. If you start cranking it too hard, these bolts are super small, so it's very easy to break them. Sometimes these things are super rusted. Yeah, pulley off. Hey, Woodruff key slot is not damaged. That is fantastic. Let's continue to pull the cover off. Guess what better time than now than to take the water pump off. Hopefully we got it all drained out. Wow, the water pump is barely secured. It's actually missing a bolt. Okay, we're dry. The block looks excellent in the cooling department. It literally looks brand new. Someone has taken care of this motor. Very, very uncommon. I will say these idlers here do look pretty new. Okay, okay, all right. Okay, we're completely in time still, so let's start tearing this down, and that'll be nice because then I can finally start getting rid, or at least making this stack of parts over here dwindle down. It's so hard to get around my shop right now. So now that we've got everything stripped down and we're ready to get to work, with the exception of this crank pulley gear down here, we're actually just going to start cleaning up some gasket surfaces. So before we pull seals and put new ones, let's just get everything cleaned up and get it pretty much ready to take a new seal or some gasket or some RTV. And we've got to remove this thermostat as well. Oops. Now that the engine's completely all cleaned off and ready for new RTV and gaskets and VTCs, etc., we're about to bust her out and get this thing finished up and done. I always say exhaust is my least favorite part of, working on a Z. That's my least favorite part of getting the engine and stuff out. This is my least favorite part of anything else, doing valve cover gaskets. You gotta be so tedious of not dropping any debris inside the engine. We got all of our other parts all cleaned up, ready to go back on, so we're about to start reassembly. Still really happy with how well it cleaned up. This thing was gross. Oh, I did swap the spark plugs out. Forgot to record that, but I just went ahead and did that. I think first and foremost, we're gonna start off by sealing these water or coolant bypass tubes on the front. And I'm personally more of a squish guy instead of a smear guy. So yes, I already went back and cleaned all of my surfaces with brake cleaner. Made sure they are clean and grease free, oil free at that. I hope this helps some of you guys, but literally just hand tightening it until we can see the beads smush on both sides. Starting to smush there. Smoosh there. So pretty much that's just gonna like fill in all the gap all the way around, and that ensures that it smushes and covers everywhere. If you smear it, sometimes you cannot get it thick enough in an area and you can have leaks. I've personally only had nothing but issues smearing, so we smush. Let's go ahead and mount this one too. Easy enough. We also use ultra gray for the water pump. And I go back, look for any thin spots on the wall, and I put a little dab. And I also do dabs here just on each of these ears by the bolts, just to make sure that there's maximum coverage. Could it be overkill? Could it be unnecessary? Probably, but whatever. When you're all cleaned up, start threading each of your bolts to get it lined up and started, where you can at least kind of hang it in place. And then hand tighten all your bolts and smush your RTV just like we did up here. Skip every other bolt so you can evenly walk it down. Watch for that desired squish. Now we get to wait an hour to torque it down, which the torque spec here is 12 to 15 foot-pounds. I guess while we're here, we can throw this on. Before we do the timing covers, we have to do the valve covers. Before we do the intake valve covers, we have to do our VTCs here on the back. So that's what we're gonna go do. Just gonna put a bead on this halfway around the solenoid. And we'll let the smush do the rest. Poke it down in, start your bolts, snug them down hand tight, just like everything else. And then you'll have this little excess here on both corners. I like to smudge that down and kind of wipe it out at the same time. And we're actually going to utilize that in the corner to help our gasket seal. For up here in the front, you want to take that leftover and you want to dab and smudge it down here in the corner. If not, I mean, you can just use fresh new RTV obviously, but this will help just this valley seal with your valve cover because, you know, it's a tight corner or like a sharp corner, so it is very prone to leaking. Now let's go grab the valve cover. We can actually put the valve cover on now. Got it all cleaned up, new gasket. Fully aware it is not OEM, but some things you just learn that work. We're not trying to spend all the OEM money here, just trying to get Josh back on the road. Now we're going to tighten up all the bolts, and we're now fully snugged down. At least this one is. Let's go ahead and do the same thing over here on this bank. We're going to install our VTC, and then we're going to get ready to install our exhaust valve covers. And now that I have utterly massacred my forearms, we've really got the exhaust valve covers ready to go. We've got the RTV already all installed, hence my bad forearms. Let's put these bad boys on. This is the single-handedly worst part of the whole job, if you ask me. I'm seriously not a fan of doing exhaust valve covers. Well, I also discovered or realized that I put my VTCs on backwards. Not the end of the world. The wiring harness actually brings the connector, how this guy has it done, pretty much right back there. So it's going to work perfectly, and the other side we'll just kind of tie it down below with the knock sensor. You can tell it's been a while since I've done a valve cover job. Let's actually grab our half moon seals here for the back. Before I touch anything, I try to get a bolt started. Alrighty, we're on. Now to evenly seat it down. And now we wait an hour. Now that that's all done, we're obviously going to do this other side over here, but we'll be back once we torque and, you know, all of our RTV is in its final stages of curing where we don't have to wait, because that's my biggest obstacle right now. Except our cam seals. We do have to do our cam seals, crank seal, and get all of our timing kit back on, so very soon. It's now completely sealed up. It's not completely ready to be torqued down. However, we did just do these, but it's a perfect time for us to go back and pull all of our cam seals. So you've got this cam seal puller where we can get a bite on the seal, pop it out. Clean up the cam and inside where the seal was before you put your new one in. Sometimes it knocks debris off. We're going to take our seal, we got some oil on the inside. We're going to lube the inside. You don't necessarily want to lube the outside because it can help it push out. You want it to kind of bite on and grab. And you got to work it on your cam. Make sure not to fold any of the lips over. Kind of roughly push it into place. And now we need to get something to tap it in. A socket of the right circumference here would be perfect, but this is what I prefer to use. Just a socket, an extension, a hammer, whatever. So you can tap it in flush right here with the outside of this cam cap and cam journal or head, I guess. And now when that is fully flush with the face, you're all done, and we need to do the same thing to each of the other ones. Cam seals are all changed out, and we just torqued everything down officially, so we no longer have to wait on anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to install our spark plug tube ornament covers, I believe is the technical term. So that'll really help all of this start to come together. Now to really finish and set this thing off, put our timing cover backing plates on, and in turn, we can begin to put our timing components back on. Now, I did just think of something kind of silly of me that I have done here. Ah, man. So I just realized there is no way that we can torque down our intake cam gears without pulling our intake valve covers, because we have to put a wrench on it to keep it from turning. And I went ahead and sealed those fronts already. So I got to pull those off and get them cleaned up ASAP. Hit it with one last pass, just make sure it's fully clean. And now we can really move on. Now we can put our timing back plates on. Couldn't tell you how many times I've done that to myself, just getting so excited to be getting everything back together. And this one's fine, you can torque this on with the belt. I guess either way you can put a socket through here on this and hold it to tighten it, but it's hard to do with one guy. Make sure I had the right one. Seals all came out pretty nice, only one gave me a hard time. Now this is where things start to get a little exciting. Now this is one of my favorite parts, when we start to put everything back together, or at least on, for the final time. I'm not going to go over all that. I'm not really going to go over any torque specs here for any of this anymore, because I really have a video on how to do all this, and you'll have to check that out in my videos. It's one of my top videos. Now for the intake. And let's just throw this idler on. Not gonna worry about these. I gotta order some springs, so that's the covers and stuff aren't going on yet. And we can't do the timing kit yet because I need an oil seal for down here on the oil pump. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm really deep into this, and I wanted to get all this ready to go back in. I know these are like the most boring videos ever to make. Not really make, but I'd say to watch, where I'm just doing typical maintenance, and you know, seems pretty repetitive in the grand scheme, because I just feel like I've done 20 of these. But you guys feel free to leave any feedback below if this is something you guys continue to want to see, or if I should just try to get this all done on the sidelines and, you know, not make a whole video on it. Now I'm gonna have to say, we're gonna get the valve covers back on. We're going to get the spark plug guides or tube seals back on, and I guess we may as well crank both of these down and torque them down. Once we do that, we're pretty much done for this video, because I'm at the mercy of shipping for parts. It really stinks not having anything local around here that actually has anything for these cars. 30-year-old sports car problems. You've seen me put the covers on enough. Now we can probably go ahead and just take this timing temperature, what in the heck did I just say? Timing tensioner. I'm really motivated to finish this thing out so we can get started on this Z. Oops, I almost forgot. Torque these tensioners down to about 43 foot-pounds. Now we're actually going to torque this cam gear down before we put the belt on, so we can put the cast and cast bracket on. Now this is going to be the tricky part, trying to line up our crank angle sensor while also trying to line it up to fit the bracket. Hey, we got it that time. Let's torque it down. Well, now that everything's all torqued up, we're officially done here. There's not really much else that we can do. Like I said, I'm waiting on those couple things. I may have a crank seal. I gotta really look for that. That would probably be at the other shop if I had to guess, so we'll take a visit over there tomorrow. I gotta check for some injector seals too. And well, I need to find some injectors as well. So we definitely need to go back to the other shop. Sorry if you didn't like the boring content here working on the engine and stuff. We'll keep it short and simple next video, but we will make some good pointers about the timing service and potentially doing your oil pan and whatnot next video. So stay tuned for that if that's something that you're interested in. I have had a lot of you guys reaching out lately asking similar questions to this stuff. So that is kind of why I relayed this in a new video. So hopefully we can help you guys out. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe down below. Stay tuned for more content, and we will catch you then. Peace.